We're live, Miss Cheryl.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Uncut Thread. It's a chat series that explores the world of quilting through conversation with special guests. And each week, we examine the ideas and the traditions and creative practices that shape quilting as both craft and art. My name is Cheryl Hills, and I'm your host for today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We're glad to have you with us, and we look forward to a thoughtful discussion today. I have with me today two guests. I have Ms. Gwen Hammond and Miss Candace Phelps, and they will each introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about them. Gwen, why don't you go first?
Okay. My name is Gwen Hammond. I am a seamstress. I'm kind of self-taught. I took one class in high school and I've been sewing ever since and have been endeavoring to just try different things when it comes to sewing, whether it's for babies, for adults, for weddings, for whatever. And now that I'm doing some quilting, I'm just really enjoying that also. So and I run my own business. It's called The Ties That Bind, and I've been doing that for over 20 years. So that's a little bit about me, but my love is sewing.
Thank you. And Candace.
Um, my name is Candace Phelps, and glad to be here with y'all. I've been sewing for over 40 years, sewed all through college, had my own custom drapery workroom for 30 years. Recently closed it. I'm really into quilting now, so I've been doing a lot of quilting. I think I have more time, so I'm doing more quilting. Um, that's about all. Sewing has always been my why, and I love the fabric, the process, the people. That's pretty much it.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
So today's subject is copyright in craft. Where is the ethical line between inspiration and outright theft? Now, quilting has always been rooted in sharing and community and traditions, but we're also living in a digital age where patterns and images and ideas travel fast, sometimes without credit. So we're going to ask the question about when does inspiration cross the line and who gets to decide? But before we dive into that, I want to lay a foundation and I just want to talk a little bit about what copyright is in quilting or sewing for that matter of fact, if you make garments or quilt. What are we talking about? So the definition of copyright for artists is a copyright is a legal protection automatically granted to artists when they create an original work that's fixed in a tangible form. So that could be a quilt or garment, and it means that you own the rights to your original creation the very moment that you make it. And you get to control how it's reproduced, how it's distributed, how it's sold, how it's displayed. And that can be, in addition to the actual work of art, it could also be for written patterns or instructions or any unique design arrangements or compositions that you make, or any original artwork that you turn into fabric. But I want to let you know what it doesn't protect. Copyright doesn't protect basic techniques like sewing or piecing a quilt. It also doesn't protect common quilt blocks, like the log cabin or the 9-patch or the half square triangle. And it also doesn't protect any of your general ideas or styles or any color palette that you may use. What a copyright does is it protects your expression of an idea, but not the idea itself. So, what happens if somebody infringes upon your copyright? What does that look like, infringing on somebody's copyright? Right? copying and selling someone else's pattern, or reproducing a quilt design for profit without permission, or sharing paid patterns publicly for free, or passing off someone else's design as your own. And the impact on the artist is they may lose income if you're giving away for free something that they're expecting people to pay for. And it also takes away their visibility and their recognition because it's being attributed to someone else. And obviously, nobody likes to be disrespected or exploited. So what happens when you actually infringe on somebody's copyright? You may be called out publicly. You may be called out privately. You may damage your own reputation. You may receive that cease and desist letter from an attorney to stop using or distributing somebody's work. Or, you may suffer some legal action, which could result in any kind of financial damages or removal of a product or content, and obviously the legal fees that go along with that. Right. But the reality is that, most copyright course actions for sewing and quilting never really get to court. But, there are some quilt police out there that are legitimate that really need to help protect your rights and the rights of people who are creating the art. So I'm going to ask my guests. Right. First off, we'll ask Gwen. When it comes to quilting and garment sewing and making garments with a quilting flair to them, what inspires you? Where do you get your inspiration from?
Well, as far as quilting, I'm kind of new to that, but I get my inspiration basically from others that I see the work, I see their patterns or things of that nature. And I will try to make that pattern, but I'm not doing, I put it like this, I'm using my own fabric, I'm making the own color palette, and I'm doing those things. So it's not like I'm actually just copying it all the way. You know what I mean? Total like a reproduction of what exactly they've done, but it inspires me to do something similar. And like you said, they don't have the right to say, oh, I can't make a log cabin. I can make a log cabin because that's not something that's copyrighted. That's something that's been around forever. Some of these patterns have been around forever and nobody has ownership of them. And the same thing happens in fashion world too. The type of clothes you make, if you make a dress, a certain dress, they can't say you can't make that dress, but you can't do it exactly like theirs and not give them credit, the person that came up with it. With the patterns, you can use the patterns and things like I said before, but it gets real deep because I mean, even with patterns, you can make them, and even sometimes you can sell your product, but you can't mass produce it. You could do it for just selling for like very small quantities and things of that nature, but you can't go to a, a, a warehouse and say, I want to make 1,000 of these, or I want to do that. That then you're crossing the line without permission. But yeah, I get inspired by seeing other people's work because I had never, I've made blankets and things of that nature, but I didn't realize that there were so many laws and things of that nature to that. I just created blankets and quilts and stuff for my grandchildren and never thought about, who would say, no, that was my original whatever, you know what I mean? So yeah, I guess get inspired by seeing other people's work.
Candace, what inspires you?
It's hard to say. It's a lot of things that inspire me. Sometimes I walk by a fabric and I'm like, that would be great with this other fabric I have, and I make a whole quilt about it. A lot of things that I make quilts from, other than just seeing the fabric, I do a lot of story kind of things, like things that may remind me of my family or things that are in my family. And then I incorporate like different types of blocks or techniques to put around like pictures or what do you call those panels, things like that, and try to make it my own. uh It's just really hard as far as like copywriting. I mean, a half square triangle is a half square triangle. If you put it near a square or a dress or a diamond or something, I mean, you can go on all day and create all these different types of blocks. Now, of course, if you buy a pattern and they're arranged in a certain way and it's a copywritten pattern, and also the ones where you buy the kits that come with it, where it comes with the fabric and the pattern, I really I can't get with those. I like to use my own fabric. I like to try to put my own spin on it. And I love it when you can take a pattern and give it to like maybe 4 or 5 people and they all come up with something different. Whether it's copywritten pattern or not, it's going to look different. Everybody puts their own thing on it. And I think we all learn from each other and get inspiration from each other. So that's pretty much, I mean, I get inspiration pretty much anywhere. I'm working on a quilt now from the people that were walking. Where are those monks that were walking?
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
that was really inspiring to me that they would take the time to leave the monastery and walk. So I'm doing something along that line. So you get inspiration from things around you, current events, things that happen in your family, things that fabric. And it's just hard. I almost have to walk around with blinders so, so I don't keep making quilts.
I hear you. So, is there a particular quilt artist or artist of any type that inspires you? Candace, you can answer that.
Oh, for me? Oh, okay. Hmm. No, I just kind of like a lot of it. I just like a lot of it. That's- I mean, my mother loves Bisa Butler. I'm not a portrait artist type of thing. She's a portrait artist and she can make quilts with portraits on it. I can't do that. I can do her background though, but I can't do the whole picture part of it. As far as a quilter that I really like, well, I did, I liked Donna Jordan's stuff a lot. She passed away. I liked her piecing and her creativity, but I always like to add African fabrics to it.
Mhm.
To whatever I'm making. It's going to have African prints or batiks or something in it. Even if I throw in some blenders or some solids. But as far as quilters, a particular quilter, I just like to get things from a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit, and put it together the way that I see it or make my own.
And Gwen, is there a particular artist or designer that you draw inspiration from?
I can't say far as quilting because I'm real, like I said, I'm new in this area, but I I just I just like far as fashion and things of that nature. When I was in college and I took some fashion classes and things of that nature. I don't know why, but I love Ralph Lauren
Mhm.
and I love his style. I love how he started. He started out making neckties and how he
Mhm.
built his business. And then far as a style or other far as that the what is it called? I think it's the Chanel jacket. I think it is. Yeah, that I like. I
Mhm.
like that kind of stuff. I like things that are elegant and unique. I'm not kind of. I'm not that one that does all the wow things or like things. I like traditional, but
Mhm.
yet with a flair. So
Mhm.
I kind of stick to the basics, and I just I don't know have any particular one per se other than those two that really kind of stood out to me. Um, but I just like doing anything that's a little different, but not too far out. I guess a lot of that has to do with my faith also because I've been in church all my life. So we couldn't dress but so far, go but so far. So that may play a part of it too. But But yeah, I am more into the elegant, traditional things of that nature. I love the good suit. I love, a nice dress and things of that nature. So, and I, like it to fit in the certain shape. So I can't give you a particular designer that I really. Only thing about Ralph Lauren was when I loved his stuff, but he didn't cater to my sizes. So even if I could afford his stuff, I couldn't buy it because it wasn't catered to us. That's the only thing I didn't like about it. But yeah.
So Candace, when you get inspired by seeing something or creating a work of art from something that you've seen, where would you draw the line between your being inspired and using that object for your inspiration and somebody stealing it or theft of the idea or what that person has made that's similar to what you're about to make?
Well, I think that's a difficult line because I mean, we all could see something that we like and want to make some spin of it, something off of it. Where I draw the line is when you take my actual work and then put it on your website or
Right.
on your post, then a phone call has to happen, and it's very uncomfortable, and but it has to happen because it's not your work. I don't like so someone claiming your work as theirs on their website or on their page. If you're sharing something from some event that you attended, I always like to put not my work or I attended, these are some works that I saw. So it's not my work. I'm not claiming it as my own. I've had that happen when some of my drapery work was in a competition, someone had put it on their advertising in a whole nother state, and because it was an international show, it got back to me that this person had my work on their flyers, so conversation had to happen, and but yeah, it's but now that the information age is going so fast, it's hard to keep up with that, really. And I don't, as far as copyright, if I make something that's in an exhibit or show or something, I always give credit, if it's from a pattern or, I try to credit everything that I can, the person who long armed it. If I got the inspiration from this pattern or the paper pieced patterns came from this book, I list the book, just so that everyone gets credit, and as far as like producing, um, producing things, whether it's for craft fairs or for show, little, where you sell it. I agree with Gwen, you can't take it and have it mass produced without permission. Sometimes you can contact, like if it's like a Sally Tomato or something, you can contact them and say, look, I want to make 1,000 units of this. Can I use your pattern? And then they'll give you written permission, but I don't think it's right to go ahead and just pay $10 and then make 1,000 of them. And then you make, a lot of money from a $10 purchase, and so yeah,
Do
that's just
you,
my spin.
Candace, do you take any other steps to protect your designs? I know when you see it, you make phone call. Do you do anything else?
Well, I tried, I've gotten lazy. I used to put like some type of watermark across the picture when I would post it online and stuff like that, especially after that first thing happened. But, I don't know. I don't know if it's because I'm older now and I'm just kind of laxed about it, and my feeling about quilts is maybe a different take. Like, I don't, and I don't know how you can claim something too much on a quilt because, you're using half square triangles. You're using, you're using quarter square triangle, you're just building a block. So, unless you're actually buying a pattern and copying it. But even some of those patterns are so basic. I'm like, how can you make that a pattern and put a copyright on it? It's squares with rectangles around it and you copyright it. So I think that's a little extreme,
That's definitely a fine
and
line.
someone to come after you for that, so.
Now, Gwen, you also will make garments for people.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about making garments for people? And have you had anybody come to you and say, I want you to make this that they've seen in a picture or a celebrity wear? And how do you handle that as far as copying it exactly? Where do you stand as far as copywriting and taking somebody else's work in your business?
Right. Um, that's a lot of times when most people come, especially the young girls, they come with a picture. Can you make this dress for me? I can get the fabric. Can you make this dress for me? And I've always said yes. If it may not be exactly, and it may be exactly, but I still say even when fashion, you cannot claim a copyright because of a certain style. A A-line dress is an A-line dress. Nobody owns an A-line dress. You know what I mean? The cut and everything it's based off of some original design, and nobody really can claim that. It's when you try to, how do I put it? Like, for instance, like a Louis Vuitton pocketbook or something. If I make a pocketbook that look just like that, I just can't put the LV on it like his. You know what I mean? Like
The
I
duffel
can't do
shape is
that.
the duffel
You can,
shape.
right. The shape is the shape. So I don't think there's a problem with making that dress. And it's not, like I said before, it's not on a large scale of what I'm doing. I'm just reproducing a dress from what I see and the picture, and I can't see everything, all the details about it. I'm just going as close as I can. So I don't see that whether copyright laws would cover that. I really don't. So I've never even thought about it like that, but I don't see how they can come after you for that kind of stuff. Now I've seen dresses that I really um, like even some of the things that Michelle Obama and different one wear. And I'd be like, oh, I want to make that. And I don't see where there's a problem because it's just the design that they have made. I didn't use the same fabric. I didn't claim anything that they had. You know what I mean? So I just go on and do what I need to do. And if they most of the time they like what they get, and they're not gonna find that one dress. If there is a copyright law, they're not gonna come after that one dress. It's the odds of them coming to that high school or to that prom or to that wedding and say, oh, she made that dress just like mine. I don't see that. And I really don't think that's illegal. So I do that all the time. If I see something I like, I want to reproduce it. I go in the stores and see stuff. And I was like, oh, I ain't paying that. I can make that. You know what I mean? So that's just where I find it at.
So you kind of answered this question, but how much does a design need to change to make it feel like it's a new creation?
I think in this day and time, what they call that is upcycle. They change things around, or they may take the sleeves and change the sleeves, or they may change the neckline and things of that nature if you want it to be a little different. But I guess I think it's all about what the person desires, what the client wants. I don't think you have to, like I said, I don't think you have to go to that detail and worry about that stuff. It's just, I look at it even like when I was in college and you writing a paper. I cannot write word for word what I read out of that book. If I write something that was said in that book, it has to be in quotations to show that it came from somebody else's words, I mean, just like if I wanted to advertise that dress that I made, I'll say, well, I made it out of this pattern. I use this pattern or whatever. Or sometimes I have to take the pattern and create my own part to it. I change the pattern around. So I still get some credit for the part that I changed. But like I said, I don't I don't foresee them coming to you for changing that thing, doing that. And everything I make, I try to put my own twist on it anyway. So yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm going to throw this out to both of you. And Candace, we'll start with you. If it's online, it's fair game. What say you?
Wow.
No, I don't. Well, if it's online and it's a pattern, it's not fair game, because you're taking money from someone, you know what I mean? That's not fair game. I mean, you could try to recreate it yourself. You can make the pattern, try to draft it yourself if it's clothing. With quilting, again, for me, with quilting, it's kind of hard. It's a struggle for me, because when I was working in fashion, of course, you have, the big designers that come out with their line, and it's maybe, whatever, right? And then you have the smaller lines that try to copy it and they change the fabric, so the fabric isn't as nice. It's not the same drape, it's not the same detail because they're making it for less. So it's kind of copied, but not, with interior design, when I worked in interior design, everything was custom. So it wasn't too much of a copyright issue there, other than when you started getting into the repro fabrics, they only want you to use it in certain ways. Okay. And now with quilting, I've noticed that there are some designers that will come after you, pattern designers that will come after you if you don't credit them. Like if you put it as an exhibit and you don't credit them. Some pattern makers don't want you to exhibit it, and I thought that was just the strangest thing when I saw that. So I'm like, well, how do you monitor something like that? All these exhibits across the country, and internationally, how do you control that someone didn't take a block from your pattern and put it into their quilt, and you want credit for that block? To me, it's a little excessive, and I don't know how you would monitor something like that in the age of Pinterest and Instagram and all of that. I mean, sure, on the pattern you have your copyright, please don't mass produce, you can use but give us credit, that kind of thing. I don't know how with quilting with the squares and the triangles. I can understand with paper piecing, you have the quilt works. They have very intricate things. You can recognize that that's a quilt works quilt, be just from the finished product, There's no denying that. You could look at it and say, okay, that's quilt works or that's Paula Nadelstern, just from the design, You definitely have to give credit for those kind of quilts. I understand that. But when you come into just squares and half square triangles, I don't understand that, because you can arrange those any kind of way. You can select any kind of fabrics and it already looks different, you know. I just don't get that,
Right.
I can
And what,
understand crediting maybe the book that you got your inspiration from, but that's just because you got inspiration from it. It's not like you copied it.
right, right.
Mm-hmm.
Gwen, this is for you.
Okay.
Credit alone is enough. Permission isn't necessary.
Ah. I think that depends on what it is. If you've been inspired by something or that you got ideas from it, it's fine to credit. I think that artist or that person that created that pattern and things of that nature. I think if you are showcasing their stuff, then yeah, you have to give them the credit for that. You have to, I think you also have to ask them permission before you even showcase something that's from them. Because if you're showcasing it and not giving them the credit, it's as if it's yours. And it's not, if it's not mine, I don't want to try to take credit from anybody else or whatever. But I know there are some, from my research, there are pattern people out there that make patterns, like I said earlier, that don't mind you making things handmade and selling them, as long as, like I said, it's not mass produced.
Right.
And even with that, you still can give them credit for it because they're giving you permission to use their things to get money, make a living or whatever. And they're not asking you for any financial, they just allow you to do that. But when you go across the line and try to mass produce and things of that nature, that's when they will step in. So I think it just depends on it's the issue, what you're doing, if you should ask for permission or not. I wouldn't want to take the chance of not asking for permission and then get caught using somebody else's stuff and then have to deal with your integrity and questioning your honesty and things of that nature. So I'd rather not second guess it. If it's something that I know that I should give credit and ask for permission, that's what I want to do.
Thank you. So we are going to take the next segment of time and show off and brag about both Gwen and Candace's works. So we're going to start with sharing Gwen's works, and we will, let me just share this. There we go. And so this is Gwen's. Oops, oh my gosh, I was flying through. Let me go back. Okay, this is Gwen's first. Oh my gosh, what's happening here? It's got a mind of its own. Okay, Gwen actually has a business where she actually sews clothes and garments for other people. So Gwen, could you just tell us a little bit about how you got started and what your business does?
Okay. I first got started when, like I said, I started sewing in high school. I took a class there, and my mother made me make anything and everything that she wanted in her house. But then after a while, I wound up deciding that I wanted to do my own business. And I didn't even really know for sure how to get started. I just went and got a business license, and I just began to buy fabric. And when we're talking about copyright, if you see some of those fabrics, they have some of the like Winnie the Pooh, or they have some of the Disney Mickey Mouse and things. And with those things back then, I didn't know that I could not sell their stuff without their permission, even though it was fabric and the fabric is being sold to me. I didn't have the permission to make things out of it and sell it. I could do it personally, but back then I didn't know. So I was making blankets and quilts or whatever just out of, those fabrics and selling them. And no one ever told me that I didn't supposed to be doing that. So that's how I started. But then as I went on, I began to make my own designs and putting fabric together and doing things of that nature. And I'll do a lot of alterations and tailoring.
Okay. Yeah, some of the larger companies like Disney have the resources to be able to have somebody actually out there policing
Exactly.
the world.
Yeah, NFL
and
and
infringing.
Yeah, all of those.
Exactly. That's my patchwork duster that I'm almost done. I got to sew the sleeves. I got the sleeves in. I just got to sew down the sides and stuff. But I really enjoyed that. It's a lot of piecing work to put together, but it's something that, I was inspired through So Creative Lounge to do that. And even though it's a garment, it reminds you of quilting.
Absolutely. You can definitely take those quilts and turn them into garments.
That's a jacket I made once again with 2.5-inch strips. They call it a jelly roll, and it's as a nyla pattern. And I made it reversible. I put a zipper in it. It doesn't, I don't think it called for a zipper, but I wanted a zipper. And I made that. That's also, like I said, it's almost like patchwork. And that's another thing is when you do these patterns, and make these jackets and things. And then when you want to sell them, I think we have to ask for permission to sell that on a larger scale.
So I'm going to read for you the copyright information on this pattern, just a little part of it. Okay. So it says the finished product may only be sold by sewers. It may not be mass produced. You can only sell the finished product. You cannot sell the pattern or the instructions. So that's the part of the copyright for that particular pattern.
Right. So I can sell it, but I can't mass produce it. This is when I was making blankets and things. And believe it or not, I didn't know, it may sound crazy, but I didn't know it was called quilting. I just was my daughter asked me to make a blanket for her baby, newborn baby. And she showed me the shapes and how she wanted things done. And I just created what she drew. So this was actually my daughter's pattern, but I created it with the fabric. That was like 11 years ago. Once again, and these, I think Candace was talking about kits. That's how I started with these things. I would get kits, or I would buy the little blocks from like Walmart and stuff, and I would match them up, different things. Somebody would just tell me what color theme they wanted, and I would go find these colors and I would put it together. And that's what I did.
That's a great way to start.
This is a perfect example of not copywriting a shape. It's a square.
So exactly.
You can't. There's no infringement in using squares.
A non-patch,
Right, exactly. Wedges. Just being creative. Same thing, just color. Somebody give me a color scheme, and I go find the fabric, and I put it together. And I didn't know it was called Stitch in the Ditch. I didn't know any of that because I'm kind of self-taught, so I'm just going by what I know, think it should be and what it should look like, and trial and error. So, and it came out all right.
Okay, thank you,
Very
Gwen.
nice, Gwen.
Your work is beautiful.
Very nice.
And I will say that I'm sure that you have probably inspired someone in our audience just by virtue of seeing some of the things that you've created.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go on and take a look at Candace's work.
Yeah, like we talked about the log cabin. This is a log cabin, but I made the squares in the middle bigger and did like abstract fabric. I used all of our leftover fabrics from making masks during COVID to make this. So all those little pieces that were left over from cutting the curve on those masks and little side pieces, that's what that was made from. Other than the border, I had a piece big enough for the border there. And it was free motion quilted by my lady Leslie in Fairfax, Virginia. She does all my quilting. Always, this is my mermaid, my Yamaya quilt. And this one, I just kind of did free hand cutting to stack different colors, cut it different ways, then added a 1/4-inch binding over the seams. So it would connect with, the waves would connect with the the panel that the mermaid is sitting on. So like the waves in the middle are connecting with the wind or the waves on the side. It's beaded. She's completely beaded around her neck with waist beads and beading on her crown as well, iridescent beads.
I love that. So, can you talk about the inspiration for creating this?
Um, it was I don't it was the fabric. It actually was when I first started teaching at So Creative Lounge last year. They had a bundle, and I've had this whole mermaid thing in my mind for a while. And I just was like, the right fabric hadn't come across me just yet, you know. And they had put this bundle together, and I said, that's the bundle that I'm gonna use to make it, you know. And then, you know, I had already had the background because I was going to make a mermaid quilt, you know. So I added those fabrics, and then I also had some blenders already that I had, you know, some batiks, and I just kind of blended it, you know, and I wanted to make sure it clearly had like that she clearly had like some African accents on it as far as like the kente and also the Ankara fabric around her waist, and then, you know, identifying things like the cowrie shells and stuff in the tool. It's a glitter tool that looks like the water that she's manipulating, and she's holding a mirror because, you know, it's one of her things, one of the things that the deity has. Yeah, so it's just from fabric.
Oh, that's not good. Where'd your stuff go? Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, this is a paper pieced quilt. And this is a New York Beauty paper pieced quilt. And this inspiration, it came from two places. First, I saw the fabric with the African women with the plates and the jars and stuff. And I wanted to make sure that I accentuated the fabric with other fabrics. So it was like from a collection. I think it was a collection from Timeless Treasures. So I mixed in their fabrics that they had with it, and then some of the fabrics I had. And and I used the book, what book was that? It was Radiant New York Beauties. You know, so I used some of the paper piecing patterns from there for the half circles and the border. And we had it hanging at the show. I believe I had the reference for the book on there.
Okay. This is one of my favorites. I think I took a picture of me with it.
Oh, I'm glad you like it. Okay, it's a pine burr. And then also I have accents of yo-yos accenting in between the pine burr. I guess one of the main picture isn't populating, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
I'm not sure. I'm having some technical
That's
difficulties over
okay.
here.
It's okay. Yeah. So, you know, the pine burr is it's like prairie points, but for African Americans, traditionally, especially it became the Alabama state quilt block in the 80s. Because we made them in a circular manner, you know. Prairie points, a lot of times you see them straight, right? Traditionally, the quilters in the South, specifically Alabama, and then that part of the Panhandle of Florida, they're made in a circular manner, you know. And if you have ever come across the book Pinecone Quilts by Betty Ford Smith, she has the whole history of it and how it kind of relates back to our traditions in Africa, as far as that circular pattern. So that's one thing that really interested me about it. I only made little small squares. I did about 5 of them. You know, Betty Ford Smith makes entire quilts with those giant, yeah, by hand. She does it by hand. I did those by machine. So, you know, I'd love to do one by hand, but I feel like my time is tight. I want to get, you know, a couple of more quilts out before I could do a hand one, you know. Yeah, so that's what that is. That's just my pine burr, my spin on it. Oh, I took a class at the African American Museum of Art with Cookie Washington for that quilt. So one of the blocks is the fabric that they gave in the class.
Candace, I apologize. I'm not sure.
That's
Your
okay.
your quilts have disappeared on me. I'm
They
gonna
went
stop.
poof.
I'm gonna stop sharing for one moment
Might have
here.
to refresh. I don't know.
And
Maybe it was too large, some of the pictures.
no, we were okay a little bit ago. Um, so while I am um, trying to queue up the rest of Candace's quilt pictures here, I do want to move on to talking about teaching and the next generation of quilters to come, and what we can do to alert and make people aware, especially new young designers, um, about copyright and using other people's design, and that fine line between inspiration and theft. How do we teach newer quilters that sharing online doesn't really mean that it's theirs to use without giving credit or recognition?
Mhm.
Either one, whoever wants to tackle that.
That's a tough one because I don't know how you would regulate that online. I really honestly don't. Um, I mean, as you're teaching people, especially when I used to teach, I still teach, but when I was teaching garments and we would work with the big five patterns and stuff, they had the disclaimers on it, and you would have to let them know that, this is what you can do with this pattern. You can't take it over here to this workroom and mass produce it. This is for, individual consumption. You can make it for your friends. You can make it for, even for a client, but you can't make 1,000 units. Okay. Because some people start sewing because they want to get into the fashion industry and stuff like that. But you have to let them know right away that there are rules to this, just like Gwen said with writing. You can't plagiarize, something as if it was your own quote. And I think with writing, because they're able to use AI and other things to see if someone's copywriting now, it's a good thing. But as far as like artwork, or quilting, um, with quilts, I think it might get a little difficult because how do you find the originator other than, if it's a pattern, you can find the originator. But if I mix other things with one part of it, because I like this one technique, but I put my own spin on it, someone can't come back and say that that's copywritten. I don't think. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know. Um,
Okay.
but
Well, Candace,
get, I think artists get inspiration from each other.
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. Like this pine cone quilt is definitely inspirational for me. We have your quilts back up, so if you
Oh,
could,
okay.
um,
Thanks. Yeah, I kind of got inspiration for this quilt from there's an Australian woman that makes pine cone, but she calls them something different. She does them a little different as well. She puts like a flat piece in, and then she'll have like just a couple of rows. I should have got smart and done that instead of doing all those triangles. But, but yeah, she has books and things out, but I like the layout there. Now you're talking about copyright. I had a problem with this one right here. I couldn't get it accepted into a show because of the Color Purple copyright. This is
Oh,
the scene
wow.
from the Color Purple
okay,
when they were playing, the sisters were hand clapping in the field. So yeah,
interesting.
so it's a problem. You know,
All
it's
right.
liked, but I can't really show it too many places, you know.
Interesting. So
Mhm.
what did they say to you besides,
Well, in it just said may have issues with copyright was one of the reasons it was rejected.
oh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like it.
And so in this one, that one I used, we call that the one block wonder technique with the purple flowers.
Okay. Okay. So I thank you, Candace. Love your work.
Thanks.
Inspiring
Thanks for sharing it.
to me. Candace's work was just, I think a piece or two was just on display in Greenbelt, Maryland. She and her mother had a two-woman show of all of their works. So someone who could easily be affected by copyright is definitely Candace, as her work shows more and becomes more and more popular.
Oh, sweet.
So we'll keep an eye out for your work, most definitely.
Thank you. Thanks.
So Gwen, I'd like to pose to you that same question about the next generation and teaching young quilters how copyright works and what to look out for. If you were teaching a person to sew garments or quilts or whatever, what would you tell them? How would you teach them about copyright and things that they should look for?
I think I would start off with, like Candace was saying, you got to ready to read those patterns. If you're using someone else's pattern, read how far you can go, what you can do with it. And then I think where the difference come in is when you're creative and you create your own off of what you see. Then I think you don't have to particularly worry about the copyright, because that's just your foundation, but you're inspired to do something, take it to another level, do something different. And I think with this generation, I'm really finding that I don't particularly think they're worried about taking somebody else's stuff, because the big thing nowadays is they're upcycling everything. They do some beautiful work with taking a shirt and changing it into something else, taking a jacket and creating it into a dress, and they're doing all kinds of stuff. So I see them letting their creativity flow. I don't see them being stuck by a pattern. And a lot of them are just taking the mannequin, and they're putting fabric to the mannequin. They're not even worried about the pattern. They're just draping. They're more into the draping and doing things of that nature. So you would teach them about the copyright laws, but I don't think we have to really worry about that too much, because they're so creative. They're so artistic. I mean, I see some of this stuff these young people are doing, and it's blowing my mind, what they're doing. I was like, I want that creative, that young, but that's just what they're doing, and they're doing great things. So I think as long as they get that education about the legal part of it, they'll be fine. And just like I said, teach them, and so that they won't find themselves in a place where they're trying to just duplicate what somebody else done. They're doing their own thing.
They are very about individuality. These
Yes.
young, they are very,
Yes.
and it's nice because it makes them creative. They make
Yes.
really creative stuff. You're right about that, Gwen.
Yes.
So do you think that social media like Pinterest or Instagram or Blue Sky or anything has blurred the lines between upcycling and copyright infringement or theft or taking other people's ideas? Do you think that's kind of made it confusing?
I think it made it confusing, but I think it only boosts your creativity.
Yeah.
Only thing that I'm concerned with, and that sometimes I see, is that it's not really overload, but you could start out with one concept and then you can look at too many things, and then it changes what you may have been already on the right path
Right.
to make something. And then I went to Pinterest. Oh, I'm gonna add this, I'm gonna add that, and then it just messed up your original vision. I think that if you think of something and you want to do it, just do it. Don't try to get into too many other outside influences that could possibly change change your outcome, and then it looks like everything else. that because everyone else saw the same thing on Pinterest. Because the algorithm, don't let the algorithm change your design,
Yes. And I agree. And my thing is, I think they will have a lot of these social medias will have issue with copyright, the claiming copyright, because the way they get content and make money is by teaching you something online and showing you how to do it. I know, like, I took a sweatshirt for a lady, cut her sleeves off, put a plaid sleeves on the sweatshirt, changed the bottom of the sweatshirt, changed the hood of the shirt. So, and I saw it and she saw a video. She brought me the video and said, "Can you do this?" And so you can't say, "Oh, that was my idea." Well, you're showing everybody in the world how to do it, and you're making money off this content. So you can't claim a copyright too at the same time.
Yeah, definitely not.
And a lot of people are doing that. I mean, they just, everything is content, oriented to make money on these social media things. So I think a lot of this copyright stuff is going out the window. Like, now the stuff that Candace makes and things of that nature, oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, you can deal with copyright because of the level and the professionalism that you have going on there. But a lot of the stuff that you're finding with clothing and things of that nature, I don't think the lines are not there anymore because there's so much stuff going on out there. I don't foresee anybody coming after you on that. I know when I was in college, I had a young lady. She loved Louis Vuitton, and she actually made a product, used the LV, but she changed the way the LV looked. She changed the way the L and the V look and claimed it as her own.
Yeah.
I said, but it's too close, and I was trying to tell her back then, it's too close. They're gonna know you got where you got it from, But nowadays people they brand name, it's their name. It's their name. Who come up with FUBU? FUBU. You would think that is a brand name for you, by me, or whatever.
For us,
so by us, I mean. So the things that they coming up, they want to put their name on everything. So nobody's even trying to take your name anymore. So I think it's gonna be all right. I think we're gonna see a lot of creativity coming forth from our young people, our next generation.
So suppose you saw that there was a person who posted something copied from Pinterest, but they didn't give credit. How would you handle that if you saw that? Would you do anything?
I've seen people put it in the post underneath the picture in Pinterest, like, that's so-and-so's work.
Yeah.
And then they that is at so-and-so's work,
Yes.
and then they're like, then that person comes in, why do you show him your work is my work is yours, So you can always tag them, I think that's not aggressive,
Right.
letting the person whose work it is that, hey, this person's saying this is their work when I just saw it on
right
on you, so, and then let them deal with it,
exactly.
So as we wrap up, I'd like to ask each of you, from our discussion today, what is one thing that quilters and artists and designers should know about copyright from your perspective?
I think for me, from my perspective, is that everybody should respect or honor what you have created, far as, and like you said, give them the credit and the acknowledgement of what you have done. I don't mind you sharing. If I create something, I don't mind you sharing it. I don't, because to me, I know when I was young, I always told the best compliment is somebody copying. And copying your stuff or want to do what you've done.
Right.
And so I don't have a problem with you wanting to do what I've done, but just say, well, I got that from Lady G, or something to that effect. Just always show respect and honor for the one that, gave you that inspiration or helped you with that creation. Like I said, My stuff may be your foundation, but you're building on it. So that's how I look at it.
I agree with
Candace?
Gwen. I agree with Gwen. Yeah. I mean, because as an artist, you inspire, as a creator, you inspire, whether it's clothing, whether it's quilting, whether it's, art, you inspiring someone, they may see it. They may be inspired by the colors in a picture to make a quilt, you know. But if you're making something that's almost exactly the same shapes, the same thing, you definitely have to give credit, I think. But if you're making it exactly or using someone's actual picture and claiming it as your own, that's totally wrong. That's just me,
Yes, I agree.
Well, ladies, we have come up on time, and I want to thank Gwen Hammond and Candace Phelps for engaging in such a lively and thoughtful discussion about copyright. In closing, I just want to say that quilting has always been about connection. It goes across generations and cultures, and everybody has a story to tell. But honoring creativity also means that we respect the hands and the minds behind the work. So just because you can create something doesn't always mean you should. And if you do, the question kind of becomes, did you honor the hands that created it first? So in closing, I want to thank everyone who's listening and watching today's Uncut Thread. Thank you for joining us. Thank you again, ladies. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you next time on the next episode of Uncut Threads. Thanks, everyone. Have a great
Thank
afternoon.
you. Bye.
Bye.